All right, hey everyone, JMac here. Another Wednesday live stream. Let's get to it. Yeah, I was just checking out the project, but to bring everybody up to speed, although most of you are probably finding me on Twitter, let's go into blade directives or templates. I think they might not even have it documented. Yes, here it is. There's a new use statement that's out here. I think it was introduced midway through Laravel 10. Technically it's been out for a while, but definitely in 10, and it is not in the refactoring tool that I have, this Shift CLI premium tasks. So I was doing a live stream, or not live stream, I was doing a human shift the other day, upgrading an application for some people, and basically saw when I ran the fixer, which runs a lot of these blade directive things, that it didn't catch this. So I thought, oh well, this is a perfect little blade directive refactor that should be in there. So let's see if we can add it in the next 20 or 30 minutes. Hey Samuel, how's it going? Martin, Bernard. Doing all right, a little busy. We're going to be doing a little family trip now that school's out this weekend, so we're packing up for that, but I'm trying to trying to squeeze in a live stream. All right, so let me bring all this up. We were still working on this observed by the other day. Did I branch off the right thing? Get Lola. Yeah, I went off main. Okay, we're good there. Okay, so there's already a task out here called blade directives. Let's just kind of go down the line and let me show you what we have. Hopefully I have here we go. Nice tidy little method here. So what it does is it goes into your blade files and it takes a look at method directive, auth directive, CSRF, JSON, lang, all these little shorthand directives that honestly a lot of people don't end up using. So auth and guest I think are covered here. Method is a nice one for your forms. If somebody has like a CSRF input box, so you can kind of get a feel if we look at something like the method directive. You can get a little feel here where it's basically like find blade files containing. It loops over and sees, okay, does someone have like a form field with name method, or does someone using the method field helper? And if so, then kind of inspect that more closely and go ahead and replace that with this directive. So what I would like to do is see if there's some kind of PHP, raw PHP, or even a PHP directive here as well that can be converted into this. This is kind of interesting. Let's see here. In some situations, it's useful, or if you need to import a class. Okay, cool. So what I'd like to do is take their examples and be able to swap those out. So let me kind of move the comments in the right spot here. Hey Samuel, how's it going? Okay, so let's add another one. So we'll say this use directive. All right, and let's add this method. And we're just going to kind of copy one of these for convenience. And I think we could probably just start with that method directive. I think it's pretty good. In fact, let's just copy the whole thing. All of these are void. Let's just fix that while we're in here. I've been doing that lately. I've been adding more type hints. All right, there's our return types, except I broke something. Oh, this already had one. Array, nice, there we go. All right, cool. So use directive. Let's go back to that method directive and copy it, because I think it's probably going to be kind of just as involved as this. So let's bring that over and let's just change the name of this, use directive, and let's kind of start swapping it out. I probably have tests for these, so I can backfill those, but let's just kind of spike on it for now. Okay, so it's all duplicated right now. That makes sense. Okay, so what we're going to look for is at PHP or a PHP open tag. We'll probably need to escape that because I think it's regex. Is it regex? Yeah, I think it is regex, and then we're going to filter out blade. So you have to have an at PHP, or you have to have a PHP open tag. And the point there being, if we kind of think about the syntax, if you don't even have one of these in your blade directives, then you're not doing any kind of like raw PHP, meaning you don't have a raw use statement. So think about a use statement being within this, or a raw PHP tag. So if we don't even find those, then there's no reason to really even inspect the file. So this is kind of just our first pass. If you've watched some of these previous streams, you know that I kind of do things in these incremental passes. It's just easier to think about. So at this point, if we have paths, then we know that we kind of need to take a bit of a closer look at these and ensure, do we see a syntax now within these tags that kind of matches our use statement expectation, right? So what we can do now is we're going to loop over those. We're going to read the file contents. We're just going to reset matches. And then now we're going to preg replace, in this case, anything that's like a super shorthand with method fields. So we're not going to do a preg replace right now. What we probably need to do is more of this match all, because we need to kind of inspect what's inside of there. So let's get rid of this preg replace because it's just a bit too early, and let's see if we can write an expression. And I'm not going to try to do this right here because this is going to be pretty complex. So you know what? I think for the remainder of this stream, it probably makes more sense to just jump out to regex.com. Oh no. Oh, sorry, it's regex101.com. I thought they were down for a second. I was going to be sad. Okay, and let's do this. Let's get PHP, and let's just kind of get an example here. We'll say use illuminate support facades, and then like request or something like that, right? Maybe they're pulling this in for some reason. And then let's close that out, and let's kind of do the same thing in a blade directive. So let's do an @PHP and an @end PHP. And let's indent that just for a little bit of fun. Okay, so we get the idea here of what a blade template might look like. We want to make sure to get both of these. So ideally, I write a regular expression that would cover these. I'm going to make it more complex here in a second, but let's just see if we can kind of get a first pass here. So what we're looking for would be some kind of opening syntax. For now, let's just try to tackle this PHP bit. So we definitely need to have PHP, and then we would expect that there is some kind of space, right? Whether they do that all on one line, again, people write some pretty nasty code, so that technically is allowed. So again, all these will be in my test cases, but for now, we know that if you have that sequence of tokens, the opening PHP tag followed by a space, that's a good enough start. All right, and then you would have to, inside of this body, have some kind of use followed by a space followed by what's allowed in namespaces. You basically have a collection of word characters, underscores, and slashes, and a lot of those. All right, so let's see what we have here. Oh, I already have my space there. There we go. So you can have one or more space, you have all of that, and then followed by, I guess technically you don't have to have a semicolon in these shorthands. That would be some pretty gross code. I think to anchor things, again, if you've watched my streams, you know on regular expressions, I like to make sure to anchor things. So let's keep this. Yeah, let's keep the closing semicolon. I like to anchor stuff. And then just for the simplicity of this one, we would potentially have some kind of space and then the closing tag. Okay, so that matches our first one. Great. Now, let's talk about this for a second. It's not very robust. We have one regular expression. It's going to be very easy to write the regular expression for this. So let's take a second and kind of break this. What if you have counter equals 1? Let's get a little fancy for a second. it would be awesome to keep counter equals 1 and then pull this out and turn it into, you know, at use and then, whoops, what we had. So not the use, of course, but this part. So what we're capturing. It'd be really cool to actually end up putting this back to that. So let me just go back to where we were. Little undo here. How far can we go? We can go pretty far. So the point being that we really want to find these open tags, get their inner contents, and inspect that for these potential tokens. So there's two things that I'm thinking there. We can try to do this all in one in like a crazy regular expression. And you might be able to do it. It'd be tough because you'd have to allow multiple groupings of these uses. And we could write that if we wanted. But I think what might make more sense is if we really just pulled out, or we left that, sorry. It would make a little more sense if we really just ended up kind of pulling out this inner portion here. So if we said match anything inside of there, like ungreedily. So let's finish putting this back to the way we expect to see if we can kind of first match this beginning. So we have the opening PHP tag, followed by some kind of space, followed by any number of characters, ungreedy, and then your closing syntax. So the reason that's not working is dot needs to match new line characters. So there we go. This is the alternative. Now that we know that there's PHP blocks inside of this template, we could capture the innards of that PHP block. And there's two things we could do then. One, we could then run another regular expression to pull out just the use statements. Because again, you could have the same exact thing down here. You can have, you know, space counter equals 1. So if we did this, then we could more kind of systematically go in a way line by line to that block that's in there and pull out use statements and then just put them above the block. It'd be very, very straightforward, I think, to do that. I like this approach because if I were to run into issues, I know that the code between these two blocks is supposedly valid PHP, which would mean I could give the block to a parser, which would do a much better job, higher integrity of being able to pull out true use statements. So I think I'm going to lean towards this approach, stick with regular expressions, but do kind of a two-pass approach to make it a little higher fidelity. And then if people reported bugs because of some fancier syntax I'm not thinking of right now in this stream, then I could switch to the parser and then I would know, well, I definitely got a use statement because the parser parsed it as a use statement, which means that's how your code's running. So I think that's the way to go. Let's check that out. So we have this pass. I'm gonna take this. Let's just kind of hang out in here for a little bit. Yeah, people could be using short open tags. There's a lot of stuff here. So I think parsing out the tags first is probably the way to go. So I think we'll do what we'll call here a second pass to parse PHP blocks is what we're talking about here. Blocks. All right. So we have that. And yeah, closing tags probably not good there. So let's just quote this, I think. It's funny that it finds the closing tag like no matter what. I didn't know PHP did that. That's funny. Is that real? I've been writing PHP code for like 25 years. I didn't know that can't be real. That's got to be. It finds the closing tag? Even in a comment? That can't be right. Is that right? Hold on, I'm sorry, this is blowing my mind. We gotta find that out real quick. php-l, that file. Holy cow. I did not know that. That's kind of good, actually, from a parsing perspective. We know that you would have to have, if you had this anywhere, let me pull this out. Wow. That can't be right. That is, wow, that is blowing my mind right now. Okay, we'll leave that alone for a minute. That's really crazy. Does it? What about What about a multi-line comment? Okay, you can do it in a multi-line comment. Man, PHP never ceases to amaze me. That is nuts. I would have, if there was a pop quiz on that, I would have never gotten that right. I would have failed miserably on PHP Jeopardy or something. Okay, sorry. Let's get back to the stream. That just blew my mind for a second. Okay, so yeah, so we could easily support short tags just by like making this PHP part optional. That's a one-liner there to still get those. And again, parsing the beginning and end doc is easy too. So this will give us the block. Let's do this third pass now. Let's write the code for the third pass, which we kind of have. There it is. Okay. So I think now that we have that, it's in there. Okay, so yeah, I'm totally blowing my mind. Okay, so we can get rid of this. Whoops, we can get rid of this. There we go, cool. And this is nice. See, this third pass is already nice because now we don't have to do all these different passes for the different types of tags. We just know that we have a block of PHP code now. It doesn't really matter if it's an @PHP directive, blade directive, or if it's an open tag, or if it's a short open tag. Doesn't matter anymore. Now we can trust that if we find this sequence, we can pack it on some kind of word boundary, but again with the semicolon and all these other anchors, it kind of doesn't really matter. We would know again that you would have to have some kind of space preceding that use statement. So we could do that. We could pop this here. So we're finding all of them now. So whatever it was, auth. Session, whatever things you might want to be importing. You probably wouldn't import these because they're facades, they're top level, they're globally aliased. So let's just say in your app support you had some kind of like service class, right? That would be a little more accurate, but it doesn't really matter. A use statement's a use statement. So the point here is that we're finding all of those inside of the block. We would now be able to extract those, kill them with white space or whatever, and then just kind of trim up this block and put it back and swap these to what they need to be before. So let's take a few minutes. Let's do third pass now. Third pass to parse use statement from block. All right, and that's going to be that. Let's close these down. All right, yeah, don't want to do that again. Okay, so what we can do is we're going to preg match all of the blocks. So that's this code. Let's just kind of put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And we need to add that .I. So use statements are complex. A parser is the only reliable way. Yeah, you're right about the group statements. Anthony has a good point. You're right. You can do some pretty crazy group statements. However, there would kind of be no way to unpack that. It wouldn't be easy to unpack that using the blade directive, right? I think if someone wrote that code, I probably wouldn't want to change it because theoretically it's denser, it's more condensed, it's more streamlined, if you will. I hate the grouped imports, just by the way. It's ugly to me. I wish they went more of like a Java approach where you could just say star or something. But anyway, leaving that aside, that's not a syntax I would want to refactor is the bottom line. So I don't care that I'm not picking that up. I would almost go so far as to say it's deliberate. You do bring up a good point though. There are other use statement syntaxes. So we would probably want to support, for example, as service or client. Let's just make it fun. So we probably would want to support that because the blade directive does support that by aliasing right here in the docs example. So we do want to support this additional bit here. So we would want to bring that across. So you could theoretically optionally have /s, so you have to have some space. You have to have the as and then you would have to have, in this case, just a word or underscore segment. There we go, there's client, and then this is optional. So there you go, now we're getting all of it again. So we would want to support, kind of to Anthony's point, some additional syntax here. So let's just bring that across. Okay, so again, I think we're getting a little close to my 20-30 minute mark here. Let's just kind of pseudocode out the rest of this. So we have this second pass. We would probably want to like to do for @PHP directive. I want to do that separately because the PHP blade directive has an end PHP, and we wouldn't want to be in a situation where like they had an opening. If we do this all in one regex, you know, you can't do an opening PHP tag in kind of the raw format and then close it the other way around. So this is going to need to be another check, and then we would kind of combine, probably just array union these matches, right? No big deal. So let's go back. We would loop over matches as match, probably. And these are always weird. I think you want like preg set order, and I probably want the offset capture too. So there's some flags I'm gonna wanna pass this. It's really nice to work with the offsets when dealing with this whole file as a string, because then I can just start to replace portions of code instead of trying to say, replace this whole block. That block theoretically could be repeated, you know, counter could be repeated on the page elsewhere. So you don't want to be too aggressive with your bit. So if I know the string offsets, I can just mess with that very specific string. And again, if you've seen other streams that I've done or stuff on Layercast, you know that that's kind of one of those little hidden shift tips when you're kind of manipulating files in a low level way like this. So I would love if there was like, Nikic parser is awesome for parsing. There's not really anything that's that great for putting it back together again. But anyway, that would be nice. So if that library existed. Okay, let's get rid of this stuff. Here's this string replace. So let's just kind of pseudocode this out real quick. We would analyze block for use statement. Okay, so we have that code. Here it is. All right, so let's just kind of go ahead and write this out. We would now go again and say preg match all, same thing. And this is going to be a loop within a loop, which isn't awesome, but you know, whatever. So let's steal this, and I'm going to turn on case and sensitivity here, just in case, you know, you got a capital as, you got, you know, capital U's. You can write that. It's gross, but you can write it. And then subject now would be matches, or match one theoretically. Oh my gosh, my comments are in the way. Let me move them so I can actually see what I'm typing. Okay, so we're going to preg match all those, and let's put these in statements, and probably same thing here. We would want preg offset capture order. Do we? No, you know what? We actually don't care here, because we're just straight replacing them out of that block statement. All right, looks like we got some trailing crap here. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so we don't need that anymore. What is this griping about? Duplicate character plus inside character class. What? Oh. You gotta like triple escape those. There we go. Okay, so matches is in statements. Now we would need to for each matches statements as statement, and then we would take match one. Let's just call this block real quick. Let me see if we can get through this. Let's call this block. This is the block of PHP code. Man, if I could type today, that would be awesome. So now we simply say block equals str replace matches 0, this kind of whole segment, or sorry, statement 0, And we would also now need to collect our use. How could we do that? We kind of need to collect the use statements. That's really just kind of a pluck though. Let's replace that with nothing in block. I think there's probably a cleaner way to do the accumulation here, but I'm not going to worry about it right this minute. Yeah. Let's do that. Sorry. Let's do uses is equal to match, or sorry, I keep doing that. Statement. This would be 1, and then we probably would want to like array this up a little bit, I would think. Yeah, and we would want to potentially get statement 2. Yeah. All right, let's null out uses. So what I'm after here, is, let's run through this real quick and then I'll kind of end. So then we would want to trim block. So this is where you would do like substring replace, and you would basically replace block with the new trim block at these offsets. So like, you know, I don't know, I'd have to bar dump this to know what preg set gives you, but the point is that it's going to give you like 0 and then 1 to know the offset, and then I would need to take for like a certain number of characters, right? So that's kind of what substring replace does. So we would end up doing that for matches, or match 0 in the whole kind of contents. So like contents equals substring replace where that block was with this block kind of thing, and that would give us contents. But it's not just trim block, it's kind of like new, let's call it, or replacement would actually be equal to trim block plus our uses statements. So here's where, you know, here is where we inject new at use. And that's kind of the to-do part, which isn't as crazy as it sounds. We really just need to loop over the uses that we collected and build out that statement. So, you know, it's very much, you know, an sprint f or whatever. We just need to account for the fact that if there was a value, if the value was not null, meaning it didn't find anything, or an empty string, I guess in this case, then we would want to make sure to add that alias, right? So we need to do a little bit of manipulation here. So we have to build the at use statement. But we would prepend it here is the point. So let's kind of loop over that. We have replacement now. Let's talk about this because I went through it a little bit quick. We loop over our blocks that we found in the PHP code. We saw that in regex earlier. We kind of reset our uses. We reset block to be the match that we found. Again, I might need to figure these out based on preg offset capture, but the point is that we take the block of that code and now we look at it for our use statements that we want to refactor, the ones we feel comfortable that we can refactor kind of as a one-to-one replacement. We find all those, we take them out of block, we save them up in a uses bit that will later convert to those use statements, and then we replace that block with a trimmed version of the block that we got that's going to take care of all the use statements we removed somewhere within the file or within that block. So it's just a little tidier. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be tidier. And then we put that back for that specific block of code in your template. So, and basically if contents is not the same as the original, we'll mark that there are changes within this and we'll replace it. So I don't think we need any of this other stuff, and I don't think we need, what did this comment actually used to say? Do we need to leave a comment? Shift detected instances, markup that could, okay, so this is just finding if there were still use statements, which I don't think we need to do. So there you have it. I think minus checking for the PHP directive and of course building this back out, this is pretty good. I do think, yeah, I've got a test for this. So I think what I'll do is backfill this test with the stuff we had in regex 101 and finish this out the right way. I think we did a good job spiking on kind of how and what this does and writing some really quick regexes for it. So I know there's a couple comments, so let's go through those real quick. Thanks everybody for joining live. So let's jump in here. Hey Lynn, how's it going? Yeah, okay. We talked about the complex use statements where you group use. I don't think those are something to replace. So yeah, Lynn, I think you got caught up. Zir, let's see here. Would be cool if it's that it finds blade echo statements where it didn't import the fully qualified PHP Storm autocompletes my helpers and echo tags, but doesn't know how to import them in Blade using. Yeah, PHP Storm's a bit behind, I've noticed, on their Blade directives. Another good one is session. I think @session is now a newer Blade directive. Instead of having to say like, if this thing is in the session, you can say @session, has this thing, and it'll check for it. That never highlights for me either in PHP Storm, so very annoying. PHP Storm, again, I love the editor, but they kind of need to be like coaxed to stay up, especially with the Laravel framework stuff specifically. So like, never be afraid to open a ticket there or like call them out on Twitter. I've actually gotten some results that way. That's not necessarily the best way to do it, is call people out on Twitter, but I have had results that way. So anyway, all right, thanks y'all for joining live. See you next week.